Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. This is going to be a knit with me video where I knit a sweater while I talk to you. I'm gonna link you the complete playlist up here. Today I want to talk about minimalism and setting priorities, and that for me a minimalist mindset has a lot to do with setting priorities. I also want to talk about the book Essentialism that I recently read, and I told you in a video where I shared a whole day in my life that I'm gonna give you my opinion on it. I'm done now, so I want to talk about that because it has a lot to do with this topic. I'm gonna link the video up here for you, the day in my life video, if you haven't seen it, and if you're interested you can watch that after this video or whenever you want to. So with the sweater here we are coming closer to where I can divide like the arms from the body part. But we still have a few rounds left, so that's what I'm doing in this video, and maybe at the end, no, I don't think we are getting that far. I will insert you a bit of footage of me knitting on this sweater before this video. I just thought it's faster that way, and I've done that last time as well, so let me know if you enjoy that or if you think it's better if I knit the whole sweater on camera while talking and not just insert some b-roll of it. So starting off, I want to say that all of these notes that I have made for this video, I made before I read the book Essentialism. And reading that book, it's important because a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about are things that are also talked about in the book. And that means, and that was one of my biggest conclusions, that for me as a person, this book did not have so many new things in it. Like essentialism is the philosophy, the life choice that he promotes in this book. But for me, it's the same as having a minimalist mindset in many ways. And I mean, it doesn't matter how you call it. It really, labeling things is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that you find a lifestyle and methods that work for you, that make your life easier and better and more enjoyable. But with that said, I'm not copying what he's talking about in this book, but I'm sharing my thoughts, but he talks about a lot of similar things in the book. So setting priorities for me means that you say no a lot more often than you say yes, because that's the only way that you can guarantee that you actually say yes to the things that are important to you, because there are so many things that you can do. There are enough things that every person on this planet can live a different life. So that means that if you want to live the life that makes you happy and that makes it possible for you to have the biggest and best impact on the world, then you really have to say no a lot of times. And that saying no is something I've been practicing for the past 5 to 10 years, I think. Whenever I became a teenager, I started thinking about why I do things, why certain people want me to do certain things, and I tried to eliminate the things that did not make sense to me. For me, saying no, for example, also means being able to, for example, cut off my hair, not wearing makeup, not fitting into some things that society wants me to be in, having a kid at 18 years old and prioritizing my YouTube channel above a career in social work. And there is no such thing as a career, I think, in social work. But yeah, I'm saying no to a lot of things to be able to say yes to the most important things. And the other side of that whole thing is, of course, that if you fail to say no, if something is not 100% for you, then you end up spending your life doing things that are not the perfect thing for you and your life. And that is so much easier to just say yes to everything and to do whatever other people want you to do, but you are the only person that can determine what actually is important. So if you want to live the life that is important to you, you really have to start making all the decisions and start saying no to things that are not perfect, that are not absolutely aligned with what you want to have from life. Of course, we don't have to be very radical. we can just try to say no more often whenever we feel like somebody wants us to do something we're really not aligned with. And when we discover that just being nice won't help us in the long run if we cannot do the things that are important to us. So that is actually a subject that is very prominent in Essentialism. But as I said before, these are notes I made before I read the book. What I want to say by that is, if you enjoy this video, if you think you can use more of the things, like if they are beneficial to you, if these thoughts provoke something, maybe you could read this book and maybe it's fantastic for you. But if you have already thought so much about that subject and found a way for you to really have a minimalist mindset and set good priorities for your life that make you happy, then maybe there's nothing really new for you in there as well. But now the next thing I actually want to do is quoting the minimalists, because Joshua Fields Millburn has said, missing out is not the problem, the fear of missing out is. And that is the next thing I want to talk to you about, because if you set priorities, if you're a minimalist when it comes to how you spend your time, your resources, your money, you have to set priorities because you cannot do everything. So the consequence of that is that you miss out on many things. And I guess a lot of you have heard about that term FOMO, fear of missing out. And for example, when you scroll through Instagram and see all these people lead these lives that you want to have for yourself too, and you feel like you can never achieve that, and everybody else is so successful, and you just, you see people around you are doing things that you might want to do, are happy, you feel like you're not, then that is essentially the fear of missing out, because you fear that you should do everything at the same time, to not miss out on an opportunity, not miss out on an adventure, not miss out on success and money and an experience. But in the end, again, we cannot do everything. When we follow 1,000 people on Instagram that lead wonderful lives, we still are only one person. We can only do we only have 24 hours because we're one person. So we can only do things with these 24 hours that we have. And I think it's a lot more realistic and better for you in the long run, making you a lot more happy if you can figure out what is important to you and then say no to everything else. Like, that is of course the same thing that I said with the first point. But what I want to say with that the fear of missing out is the problem and not missing out is that I know so many people and they maybe have wonderful lives. They are maybe happy. They are very successful in their terms, but I don't want to have their lives. Like, of course, you can do so many great things, but they are still not the things for me. They are not what I want to do with my life. And therefore, I really don't care if I miss out on these things. But of course, it's also the case that sometimes I think, oh, I wish I had what that person has. I wish I was further along on this journey. I wish I had made a different decision, so I would now be there, and things like that. But that is the fear of missing out. And missing out is the most natural thing. We do it every single day because we have to decide what we eat for lunch, and we miss out on all the other millions of opportunities and possibilities of different dishes to eat for lunch. So and it's the same thing with a career. It's the same thing with your partner. It's the same thing with how you spend your holidays, with where you go on vacation. And I think to be more content with your life in the end, all of us just have to learn more about ourselves, figure out what's important to us. Because if we do exactly what we think is what we want to have for our life, then we don't fear missing out anymore, because we know we are exactly where we are supposed to be, doing what is the most important thing for us. And therefore, there's nothing that we can miss out on, because we're already doing the most important thing. We're already doing the best thing. So, and missing out on things that are not interesting to us is not bad. But I think a certain wonder and being curious what other possibilities are out there is absolutely normal. So I think that's not bad. And if every once in a while we feel like, oh, maybe I should make another decision, then the best thing is exploring the possibilities and maybe making that decision if if you really feel like that would make you happier. And now I want to move towards like our stuff, because I think even when it comes to our stuff, which is the part where most people start on their minimalist journey, it has a lot to do with priorities. My stuff absolutely reflects my priorities. The fact that I have a limited amount of stuff also reflects my priorities in other area of my life. Because, for example, I do not want to spend my time caring for my stuff. I do not want to spend my money on stuff that I don't use. And so the result is having less stuff, for example. But the things that we keep say so much about ourselves. And I think that's also something that can be very helpful when we're decluttering, because that means that whenever we think about decluttering something, we really have to ask the question of if this thing aligns with our priorities. Because if we have 10 super heavy hobby gear items of a hobby that we liked in the past but are not really excited about right now, and don't think we ever want to spend the time in the future to really get back into it, maybe it's the best thing to declutter them, because if they do not serve a purpose when it comes to the priorities in our life, then maybe it's just distracting. A wardrobe, for example, also really shows the priorities of a person. My priorities are that it has to be comfortable. Like, I don't want to stress about how I feel, how my body feels, my tummy hurting because my pants are too tight, or a piece of clothing not fitting the correct way so that some part of my body is exposed that I don't want to be exposed. So I make sure that all of my clothes are comfortable, are covering the parts I want to be covered, are natural fibers as much as possible, because sustainability and living a sustainable life is one of my priorities. And so I think our priorities are really reflected in everything that we own, or let's better say they should be, or our possessions can have the best impact on our lives if they are aligned with our priorities. But I think when we talk about stuff, like, sometimes it's also hard to just declutter really everything we don't absolutely need. So yeah, of course, I don't think you need to become an extreme minimalist so that you only have things that are catered towards your top 3 priorities in life. But I do think being a minimalist for me, or being an essentialist in the book Essentialism, does also mean actually facing it and actually making the decision to maybe work harder on decluttering, if it's stuff or if it's things that you do, if it's money that you spend, no matter what it is, to work harder on decluttering these things to actually experience the benefits of a decluttered life, of being able to have things that are helpful with your priorities. So I think nobody wants to have things they don't need. Like, every person you ask, I think if you ask them if they want to own things that are not useful, that are not nice, that are just junk, nobody wants to own these things. But not owning them is hard work. It means we have to be very careful with what we let into our lives. It means we have to be very careful when decluttering, to be really honest with ourselves, to figure out if the thing in question actually serves a purpose, and if it's actually the best thing for that purpose. And if without that thing, it would really be that much harder. I think having strict priorities, or being aware of your important priorities in life, maybe can make it easier to declutter accordingly. And decluttering with your priorities in mind, as I said before, is the key to actually experience a life where the stuff that you own can be useful and is actually something that helps you in life, instead of being something you have to clean, instead of being something you have to care for, you have to spend money on, you have to move even though you don't use it, you forget, you have to clean up. Because I think ideally, if you really only have the things that are aligned with your priorities, you use all of these things, you respect all of these things, you like all of these things, while still being aware that they are just things serving a purpose, and that there's no need to be so attached to them that, that attachment makes it even harder, like the relationship between you and your things. Something I wanted to show you too is that I finally ditched that ugly plastic bag that I used until now for my knitting, like for all the wool and for my knitting project whenever I'm not knitting. But now I'm using that Organic Basics bag that came with my sweater that I got, I think, in the beginning of spring. And that's a good use for that, because until now I did not really know what to use it for. And when we talk about priorities, maybe I should have decluttered it because I had no real use for it. But on the other hand, since sustainability is a very important value and priority for me, I didn't just want to recycle it because I know it's a useful item. And now I'm using it for this, and I think it's a good use for this bag. Now here you see all of that is very abstract, and in theory it works out perfectly. You set very strict priorities. You have like 1 or 2 priorities in life, maybe your family and your career, or your family and your passion, or your passion and your career, whatever. And then everything else is eliminated, everything is gone. But of course, in reality, it's not that easy. So even when I'm talking about these things, these are just thoughts, these are just ideas, these are like inspiration to maybe find something for your life that would make it easier and better and more aligned with your values and priorities. But I totally get that it's not a black and white thing. There's a lot of gray as always. And so I think using these things, using these thoughts and questions and theoretical constructs is something you can do to improve certain areas of your life or just for fun. But it's of course not something you need to do to be a good person. You need to do to become happy, or you need to do to be an essentialist or a minimalist or anything like that. And another thing I wanted to talk now, that is really more about the book Essentialism than it is about my own thoughts about minimalist mindset, essentialism, and how to set good priorities. And that is that the book for me is a bit too focused on business and is of course written from the perspective of a white male. And so for many areas of my life, and I guess for other people even more, there are things that I cannot completely relate with. When it comes to raising a child, when it comes to certain hobbies or relationships or family, sometimes things are just more complicated than saying no to everything that is not 100% aligned with my priorities. Now, of course, the author also acknowledges that, and also for example, one thing that I think is very important, he just mentions it briefly, and that is if you don't have a choice, you cannot choose what is more important to you. And that I think goes for different careers, or let's not call them careers, but just jobs, because he talks a lot about that you should only do the important work, and then your career will be better if you just say no to most things, even to your boss. But in a lot of cases, I think a lot of us do not have that possibility. We cannot choose what we do in our jobs. We cannot choose to say no to our bosses. And so, that book has, of course, some limitations and is very much so written out of a very privileged position. And the author kind of acknowledges that. But I think most of us do have at least a certain amount of possibilities to make decisions. Most of us, I hope, have a few hours a day where they can decide how to spend them. I hope most of us have some money where they can set priorities on how to spend it, if they want to save it, how much to spend on groceries and other items and things like that. I hope we all have enough energy to just be able to make a decision on how we want to use our energy, and not just being imprisoned in our hamster wheel, trying to survive somehow. As soon as we do have some resources where we can make decisions, where we can set priorities, I think no matter if you're a minimalist, an essentialist, if you have ever heard about those things, if you are interested in any of these things, it's never a bad idea to think about priorities. And I think a lot of us do. But I think maybe if we think clearer about it, or if we make stronger decisions, or if we start believing in ourselves so much that we know that we can make decisions for us and not just for other people, like that we don't have to do everything other people ask us to do, that can, improve our lives. And I think minimalism for me in many ways can just be seen as setting stricter priorities and stricter boundaries. And that, for example, means in the last few days, a friend of mine wanted to give me some t-shirts, free t-shirts, and I think they were my size, but I just knew they had stripes. Stripes is not something that I like on myself. I knew they had colors that I usually don't have in my wardrobe, so I politely said no. Of course I like free t-shirts. I mean, I don't have an unlimited amount of money, quite the opposite actually, and I can link you the videos where I talk about how much money I earn and spend up here. But still, I knew that these t-shirts would not make me happy, would not be a good addition to my wardrobe, so I said no. And that is the same for a lot of opportunities. For example, as a person making YouTube videos and having a certain amount of subscribers, I get so many emails of companies that want to give me free stuff, want to do me certain things in return, and I can tell you, to at least 89% of these emails, sometimes I don't answer. And sometimes I feel guilty for that, because I think like I could give at least an answer. But on the other hand, I also think if these people say, like, these emails are often like, hello, ecofriend Leah, so they don't even know which is my name, they just call me by my brand name. I think we would be a perfect fit. We want to give you this free product. And then the product is something that is very unsustainable. The product is something I've never talked about. They have not ever looked at one of my videos. And so I even think like I don't owe them a reply, because we are clearly not a good fit. And I'm clearly not going to promote this product. On one hand, because I wouldn't use it, and on the other hand, because it's not a sustainable product. And I am committed to only showing you products that I can see myself using, or that I believe are good sustainable solutions, or are very practical when it comes to maybe digital products or things like that. So there I think I'm pretty happy with setting priorities, because there are so many things I can clearly say no to a lot of them. But of course, it's also a lot of people I don't know, I've never met, so it's not hard to say no. But when it comes to family and close friends, I of course also experience that I often struggle to say no, or that it is hard, that because there's so much gray and no black and white, because it's just, if a person wants something from me, but I don't really feel comfortable doing it, but I know it would mean a lot to them, and it's not really that I can't do it, you know what I'm talking about, I think. So again, I think let's just try and think about these things, and in a lot of areas of our life, it's maybe easier, and in others it's harder. And maybe if we practice with the easier areas, we get better at using priorities in the harder areas. Because what I do want to say here as a conclusion is, you are absolutely worth it to spend your resources the way that make you happy, and that make you able to do with your life what you want to do, to contribute in a good way to our planet, to spend your life really the way you want to spend it, as long, of course, as you don't harm anybody else. But you're worth it. And you're worth disappointing other people if they want something from you, but we all have to make decisions for ourselves. And it's not selfish if we protect ourselves. It's not selfish if we know what we stand for, if we know what's important to us, and we therefore have to say no to other things. Because, as I said in the beginning, if we don't say no, we don't have enough resources to actually do the things that are important to us. And after you found these out, you are absolutely allowed to make the decision to say no to the other things. Now, I would be really interested in knowing what you are thinking about that whole concept. If you have read the book Essentialism, if you think a minimalist mindset is something that is beneficial for everybody, how you say no in difficult situations maybe. And if you're comfortable with sharing, I really would like to know what the things are that are your priorities. What are the things that you want to do in life? How do you want to spend your time, energy, money, and what kind of things do you want to keep? What things align with your life? And yeah, what are your priorities? Thank you so much for watching, and if you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up. That would really help my channel. And if you want to see more videos, I'm gonna link you a video here and a playlist here, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!